So if you're looking for a really good old-fashioned Western film made this year, then maybe you should check out The Salvation. So The Salvation stars Mads Mikkelsen, who you might remember as Le Chiffre in Casino Royale, or Hannibal in the Hannibal series. And it is your typical revenge Western movie. Mads Mikkelsen plays a foreigner that has just come, well, he's been living in the US for a bit in the West, but his family has just finally come over to live there, and just as they're heading home, tragedy strikes. Yeah, two strangers, two bandits, are responsible for him losing everything, and of course he kills them. But these outlaws are part of a bigger group, and one of them is the brother of the leader of that outlaw group. And now this terrible outlaw wants revenge for his brother's death, and he's going to terrorize the town until they hand over the person that did it. And so Mads Mikkelsen is going to have to deal with these group of outlaws if he's going to survive. I really enjoyed this film. It's really typical of the Western revenge theme, but nevertheless it's fun and entertaining. I've had admiration for Mads Mikkelsen for quite a while. Ever since I first saw him in King Arthur, I thought, this guy is a real true badass. And yes, he can play the silent badass really goddamn well. And he has a bit of progression throughout this film. He starts off the family man, he used to be a soldier, that life is taken from him, and so he becomes the silent, well, not completely silent, he still talks, but very quiet and really great badass that we know he can play. The leader of the outlaws is Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and yeah, he always reminded me of Javier, what's his name, the villain from Skyfall, and No Country for Old Men. He reminds me of that guy a lot, but he's really intimidating in this film, and he's your typical Western villain. He's a true outlaw in every sense of the word. Other performances in this movie are great as well, but those two stand out. And surprisingly, Eva Green is in this as well. She doesn't talk throughout the whole movie because her tongue had been cut out before the movie started. Well, before the timeline of this movie. She doesn't actually have a missing tongue. Her character does. So, for the most part, she just sort of sneers and just looks very, very angry. It's like that's her job in this movie, to look really angry. And that's all she is, practically. That doesn't mean that she's not a badass at the end of the film. At the end of the film, she is a badass as well. All that's missing is Daniel Craig, and then it would be a Casino Royale reunion. Yeah, they should have had the Daniel Craig from Cowboys vs. Aliens to just swoop on in there and be one of the outlaws or either one of the people helping Mads. That would be interesting, but that would have been corny and crazy, but it still would have been really entertaining. I really enjoy how the outlaws really terrorize this town when the brother and this other guy are killed from the outlaw bandits. He comes into town, he's like, alright, I demand justice, you need to bring out the person responsible for killing my brother and killing this other guy. You need to bring him out, otherwise I take two of the town no matter what. And sure enough, they can't find him, and so he just literally just kills two people from the town. Maybe a little more. And it makes the town really desperate and unable to fight back against him because they're too frightened. And that usually ends really well in Western films because that makes the hero the only one that can stop them. I thought the action was really great, especially towards the end when it was more tactical than anything because he's up against pretty much a whole battalion of outlaws by himself practically. So he's got to be strategic and he's really smart. One of the issues I had with the film, and this might be nitpicky, but for some reason I just don't like it in this film, the bandits are being hired basically by this company that wants oil. So they become sort of minions for this whole higher goal of getting oil and driving out everyone from town for business, for oil tycoons. And ultimately it feels like it takes away from the whole intimidation factor of these outlaws. If they were just outlaws doing it because they're outlaws, that would make it more cliched, sure, but it would make them more intimidating and just more ruthless. Now it just feels like they're just doing business for this oil company. Other than that unique fact, most of it is pretty typical Western. So much so that, yeah, some of these scenes have been done in other Westerns before, even done better, but it's still entertaining at least, and I have to say The Salvation is still a good, solid Western piece that you should give a try if you're a fan of the genre. Just don't expect anything drastically new, and don't expect it to have the standards of any of the other modern Westerns like the remakes of True Grit and Three to Yuma, or even Slow West. It doesn't have that standards, but it's still a really solid Western piece, so I'm going to give The Salvation 3.5 stars. So have you seen The Salvation? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. If not, what is your favorite modern Western film? A Western film that has come out in the 2010s era. What is your favorite? As always, this is BruceGifford, and this was Just My Opinion.